Welcome to Flex That Worx, a podcast for anyone building, managing, or growing a flexible workspace without making things more complicated than they need to be. If you're running a single co-working space, juggling multiple locations, or overseeing a growing network of spaces across towns or cities, this is your space. It's for the operators, the managers, decision makers, the people doing the work to make these places run. This is Flex That Worx, scaling your workspace made simpler and less stressful. See you in the episode. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Flex That Worx. Today we are going to talk about charging and pricing in your space. Question being, are you charging the right price? We're going to look at how to price your desks, your meeting rooms, bundles for sustainability, growth, and the roadmap for your space. And we'll look at doing all of that without over or undervaluing your space and the services you provide. I'm here with Graham, CEO of Baseworks. We're going to have a chat about what he sees in the market here in Ireland and across Europe and the US, and with spaces in the UK as well. We hope to give you some real world examples so that you can take them away and apply them to your space. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. If you feel like there's anything relevant from your space and how you operate and you have found things that would help other operators, we would love to hear it. Please drop it in the show notes, the comments. We always are open to conversations about the topics that we discuss in these episodes. So, Graham, question for spaces that are unsure as to whether they are currently pricing correctly. What would you say to these operators?
What are the symptoms in the business that are indicating that for you? Is it the fact you don't have enough people in the space? Is it the fact that you have a waiting list for people to come into the space? And then the other question is, where does your pricing align with, your service levels and your overheads, your fixed costs, all that kind of stuff? And where does it all sit into the whole machine that is pricing, expenses, revenue, how that ends up on a profit and loss sheet at the end of the year?
Sure. So why would you say is pricing more than just a number? What does it really signal about a space, would you say?
Pricing in itself is a science. There's tons of books on pricing and the signaling that pricing gives. We've seen a number of fashion brands sell low quality goods at massive prices because they have the name. Depending on what kind of operator you are, where can you sit in that mix? And then the thing is, are you in a position where you want to provide genuine value, or are you just focused on getting people through the door, getting bums on seats and getting them gone again?
What do you think happens when operators get their pricing maybe wrong? So if it's too low or too high, how would an operator potentially know what to look out for?
Too high, no one's going to come to your space. Too low, you could have nobody come to your space because there's something wrong. That price, it's too good to be true. And on the other side of it, you might have a waiting list. That place is for nothing. You can go down there, you can get all of this for very little. I suppose all will flow in and out the door. And that all comes back to the supply and demand matrix and how pricing affects that,
Mm-hmm. What do you think will be one of the kind of dangers of just undercutting competitors? I think especially if an operator is starting out, and I know a lot of people who listen to these episodes are starting out, or maybe they're considering scaling and things like that. So they've probably been looking to kind of find their footprint in the marketplace that they're in their particular location, be it a city or kind of a suburb or somewhere more rural. If they're looking to position themselves around other spaces and they're looking at the pricing side of things, what do you see as kind of the risk of comparing yourself and potentially undercutting?
First question I have to ask is, can you actually undercut? Is that a sustainable business model? You still have your overheads. If you have a competitor probably not too far down the road, you're probably experiencing the same type of per square footage cost that they are. And that goes for any type of neighborhood that you're in. So is undercutting a feasible model? First of all, you'd have to run the numbers on that. And then the other thing, do you really want to be seen as the guys that are starting the race to the bottom?
Other kind of pitfalls that you might see people fall into, maybe like hidden fees, unclear structures around pricing.
We all hate hidden fees. And not even hidden fees, just the fees that aren't explicitly expressed to us. They may be in the finer print and you may perceive them as hidden fees or hidden costs. The operator will argue that they're not hidden, they're there in the finer print. But I just think being transparent with your costings. Nobody likes to be caught with having to check their bag in because it's 5 centimeters larger than it should be according to some gauge when you're getting on a plane. I think you need to be very clear on any hidden charge, and not hidden, but I mean additional charges. I mean, we're all in the world of upselling. Trying to sell more to customers you have is easier than going out getting new customers. That's an accepted principle in business. So providing different service levels within, the realms of what you can deliver and being very open and transparent about that is always going to be an effective way to drive more revenue through an asset or a resource. If the coffee is going to be free, say it's for free. I know there is operators that are in charge for coffees, they charge for whatever, but if printing is going to be charged for, have a good system in place, make sure that, it doesn't become a drain to your cost center. Honesty policies are something I'm starting to see come through more and more. Honesty boxes and things like that in co-working space. And again, you'll only get away with that in certain types of co-working spaces that have membership base, that know each other. But I think the key for me in anything when it comes to pricing is transparency. Once people know what they're paying for and they accept the extra cost because they've signed up, none of us want to fall into a cost that we didn't realize we were going to have to cover.
Absolutely. I think simplicity as well when it comes to bundles and things, because that's something we'll chat about in a minute. But when operators are looking at how they actually price the different services and then offer them to one member or company, simplicity around those, not overcomplicating them, because a confused customer typically doesn't buy. So you're putting these bundles together to attract people, but actually if they're too complex, they're just going to confuse them.
And that's the other thing. I mean, we've all been there. We've all looked at a bill of some sort, right? Be it an electricity bill or a phone bill and gone, what the bloody hell is this? What am I paying for here? And it's not even, sometimes it can be the smallest amount of money, but it's the principle will drive you off your rocker,
Graham, have you seen any pricing mistakes that you think have hurt a co-working space?
I think meeting rooms are one I think that you need to have a look at. Meeting rooms are a great way to, bring in additional revenue for excess capacity that you may have in those spaces, The tricky bit is balancing between your existing members using the space and you being able to sell to external parties that excess time that may be there. If you see one person in a boardroom, right, about 6-8 people could potentially be filling up and paying you 300-400 quid for half a day. If you can get your pricing right there, instead of me who pays, a standard desk price per month, have 6-8 people that are in this space, they're giving it 300 quid before lunch and they're gone. They turn around, you just give the wipe of a table, throw a few bits in the bin, and it's turned around and hopefully, please God, there's somebody else coming in the afternoon. That's a lovely business model if you can crack the price on that. Not only the price, if you can crack the price and get regular customers coming back, that was such a good experience. It was great to get together as a team there. One of the things about work from anywhere and distributed teams is that you can now position yourself as that central meeting point, and you as an operator can harness that and, as I said, make the most of the opportunity of filling excess space. So I think if you can crack the meeting room pricing, you're on it. If you have 6 or 8 people coming into your space that like the space, they may not all be from the same company. They may be from different companies. You now have 6 or 8 advocates going out talking about it. So if they may all be from the same company with 6 different departments, they're now bringing their focus team, their department back. So I'm a big fan of just getting people through the door and letting people know what you have and experiencing what you have and regular business. It doesn't have to be the standard subscription model of like we're paying dedicated desk fees here. It could be the people that come back every month, every quarter. When they're hiring, they take it off site to do their interviews, that kind of stuff. And then to touch on the point I was about to get into was your regular day passers. We've mentioned this before too, Amory, but like if you can craft a way of giving them value, the ones that come regularly may not be committed enough to take up a dedicated desk. If you can provide them with a bundle that maybe gives them, 5 for the price of 4, 8 for the price of 6, that kind of thing. With additional meeting room time, you've now somebody who's given extra value for being loyal to your space. They front loaded the cash flow, as I've mentioned before, and they have all that flexibility, and they'll keep coming in and coming out. So it's how you sell what you have. It doesn't always have to be as straightforward as pay for play.
That was actually the next thing I was going to bring up there. It's around pricing based on value as opposed to just volume. So like how operators can potentially move away from just filling the desks to actually pricing based on that value that they deliver, and like what the best way is to communicate why your space is worth your rates. You know, like there's two steps, you know, of course, first, a lot of operators might be actually underestimating the value that they do provide. And fair enough, some spaces may say they're more community led rather than profit led. You know, it's something we hear quite often. They're happy to break even. Now, I don't know how many people are happy to break even, but you know, typically there is this piece whereby we're not driven by the profit side of things. And spaces can have all sorts of reasons for that. There can be funding in the background. It can be a community-based space. You know, there's lots of reasons for that. But I don't think that means that you have to totally ignore understanding the value that the different segments of your space can offer. And even if you decide to offer it up and it's a, you know, just a kind of nominal fee, like to cover the running of the space or the facility on the day and teas and coffees and whatever the case might be, it's still something that's adding value to your audience. And it still means like standing there and maybe doing a bit of an audit, a bit of a review of your space and understanding how the space is actually used. Do you need to remodel it a little bit? You know, is there a way in which you set the place up to be used originally and actually it's evolving in a different way, and there's space to kind of review that now based on be it a booking system or however you take your bookings. Maybe you add those new spaces as resources now. So like it's not always just about the actual number that you're going to put on your webpage or on your flyer, wherever it is that you're taking your bookings for a segment of your space. You know, we'll call them kind of resources, be it a meeting room or a desk or an event space. But actually sometimes it can mean taking a big step back and saying, who are we actually serving now? You know, we're up and running, 3-4 years, typically who's coming through the door. And then understanding, is there another option? Are there other people who might like to come in and use the space if it was modeled slightly differently? Are there opportunities you're missing? And then that needs to come in as part of your pricing audit, your pricing review, you know? So it's not always just about the number. Actually, I think the number you put on something is the last decision you take. Like there are a few things that need to be kind of ducks that you need to have in a row first before you get clear on what number you want to put on something at the end of it, you know? How would you say that an operator would know if they're competing on value versus price?
Again, I'm a big fan of feedback. Offering your space at a price to somebody who turns their back and walks. I think it's important to follow up, say, what did we drop the ball on, or what didn't meet your needs? So there could be so much in a simple response that we decided to go to the local hotel just for parking. Okay, how did you find the price? To be honest, price didn't matter. And then you know it's parking, it's not your pricing. You know, there can be a lot picked up in 2 or 3 sentences. So you need to, I think you need to learn the art of active listening, first of all. And you need to actively go out and seek that feedback, no matter how ugly it might be. Sometimes it can be painful to get feedback you may not necessarily agree with, or feedback you've been trying to avoid acknowledging. I think the conversations and the feedback as to why you didn't get business is one thing, but also why you did get business. Oh, it's great to see you again. What brought you back? You know, it's great. I love the parking. That's good value for us and the team. You know, it's a great way for us all to get together. And that, again, is clever business, just getting that feedback in a conversational way that you can take to your team, your accountant, your bookkeeper, whoever it may be. The other side is, one thing I've seen, to be honest, Anne-Marie, is we're very good at pricing hot desks and dedicated desks. And I said, when it comes to other things beyond that, we're very standoffish about additional costs, adding those on. Events are something people are very hesitant to charge for.
What's the reason behind that?
But first of all, a lot of speakers with co-working spaces do it for free. And to be seen to be charging for events is a bit, you know. So when I was running my space, what I did was I used to do free events. They were all free events. I had to. But at one point, what I did was I thought, you know what? I'm getting all these people that aren't turning up. They're signing up and not turning up. So what I did was I charged a $5 for the event. And people committed to the $5. But the deal was pay a $5, get a free beer. So they were buying a beer, but I got the commitment, and it's amazing. That small little thing of paying a $5, people would turn up, and I got greater return. So you're going to get value. You're not getting value. You're actually just pre-buying a beer. So that was like a founder startup thing that didn't happen in the co-working space. We took it to a local bar. I suppose it's an example of testing a theory, and then people that didn't turn up, there was extra beers for everyone else.
Do you think that operators value their space? They value the events that they run?
I think they do. I mean, if you have, there's a couple of things around events. Like, I mean, in a lot of instances, depending on the type of space you are, you have to be seen to be doing them. Community managers, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford one, they're always going to be running events because that's a core part of what they do. The difficulty about events is that it's not as simple as SEO or paid ads or, stuff that comes in through the booking system where you can measure it. Like right now, you can get a snapshot. Events, they enhance the brand, all right? And stuff that you sell just directly from brand is hard to measure in the round. So, somebody that might come to an event may not come back for, months, and they might just trot in the door. And unless you're saying, like, how did you hear about us? I was in an event 3 years ago. Unless you're capturing that, but you can't feed that into your metrics from 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, you had an event, and now it's paying dividends way off. So they're a slow burner, but also they can have quick results for you. So it's just kind of like one of those things you keep doing. There will be times you're questioning the value of events for yourself as an operator. There's salaries attached to community managers. There's bills attached to catering, out of hours, time where you're away from your own. You seem to be living in the space, and we've all of that stuff to contend with. This is really worth it. And then the other side is like in an ideal situation, you get to a stage where the space is full and you've a waiting list. Do we keep up the events then, lads?
What would you say?
Oh, I would probably dial them back. I would go for quality rather than quantity at that stage, because you'll have an established audience. If you have an event every night or every week, it can be a bit of overkill. Whereas if you have maybe one a quarter showcase or, showpiece type of event, and you already have an established audience from your membership base, your waiting list, please God, and people that have been events before, I would, once I have the space full, I would actually dial back to quality over quantity, as I said.
Mm-hmm. Valuing the service you provide, I think, is an interesting one, because, and sometimes feedback from peers is useful there. I think, like have some other operators come into your space. I have found from conversations I've had that people don't find it in certain regions to be an overly competitive space, that it's a little bit more collaborative. Now, I'm sure there's regions where that maybe isn't the case, naturally, like every industry, but you can ask your members a certain amount, and you can also ask other operators to pitch in on, reflections on your space and how they're finding things in their spaces. I was chatting with an operator, and she shared she couldn't believe the value that attendees were getting out of the events that they were putting on. And I think sometimes when you're running your own business and that this is lead gen for you, right? Like, you're running the event with your own motivation, but also like trust the fact that you're putting on something really relevant to your ideal customer. And that even if people don't come back, to your point, within the next even 6 to 12 months, and it's longer, there has been an impact from that.
Thanks for tuning in to Flex That Worx. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our next episode. Connect with us on LinkedIn, watch the full episode on YouTube, and you can explore free tools and resources over at baseworks.co. This is Flex That Worx, powered by Baseworks, here to help you scale your workspace, making it simpler and less stressful.